In a quiet town tucked between silent hills and dusty roads, lived a man who had forgotten how to smile. His name was Asher. He wasn't born hopeless, no one is. But life, inch by inch, had taken his spark. First, his father died when he was 12. Then the factory where he worked laid off hundreds, including him. His savings vanished caring for a sick mother. And soon, Asher began to believe something dangerous. That nothing good could ever happen to him. Each morning, he woke up not to live but to survive. He'd sit on a wooden bench in the local park, staring at nothing. Birds chirped. Children laughed. The world moved on. But Asher didn't. Until one afternoon, everything changed. It wasn't dramatic. Not at first. Just a boy maybe 7 or 8 years old who sat beside him. The boy had only one leg. He wore a faded school uniform and held a half-eaten piece of bread. But his face lit up like the morning sun. Asher glanced at him. The boy smiled. "Nice day, isn't it?" the boy said, eyes gleaming. Asher said nothing. The boy looked at him, then pointed to the sky. "Look," he whispered. "That cloud looks like a lion." Asher barely glanced. Then the boy laughed, not a small laugh, but full-bodied, unstoppable joy. And that sound cracked something in Asher's chest. "How can you smile like that?" Asher asked, his voice dry. The boy shrugged. "Because I'm lucky." "Lucky? Yep. I get to go to school. I have a leg. One's enough to kick a ball. I have a mum who hugs me. And I get to see clouds." He pointed again. "That one looks like a dragon." Asher didn't see it. But he didn't need to. For the first time in years, he saw something else. Perspective. That night, Asher sat in his small, dimly lit room. He had no job, no fortune. But now a new thought stirred. Maybe there's something left in life to fight for. The next morning, he didn't go to the park. He shaved, wore his cleanest shirt, and walked into town. The bakery had a "Help Wanted" sign. He walked in, hands trembling. The owner eyed him. "Got experience?" "No," Asher admitted. "But I'm willing to learn. I just need a chance." The owner paused, then nodded. "Show up tomorrow. 6 a.m. sharp." That job didn't pay much. But each morning, as flour coated his hands and the scent of fresh bread filled the air, something else grew inside him. Pride. Months passed. He learned to knead dough. To smile again. The boy from the park returned sometimes. They'd wave. Asher never learned his name. But he didn't need to. Because that boy had given him a gift far more valuable than money. He'd reminded Asher of something he'd lost. The miracle of positive thinking. And that miracle, it rippled. With his small savings, Asher rented a corner stall. He sold warm rolls and sweet buns. He greeted every customer with the kind of smile he used to think he'd never wear again. And slowly, one by one, people noticed. "Something's changed about you," they'd say. But Asher would just smile. Because now he knew a secret. You don't need a perfect life to feel alive. You don't need 2 legs to dance. You don't need riches to be rich. You just need one thing. A thought. A single thought that says, "Today is not the end. Today is a beginning." Because when your mind shifts, your world follows. And that, dear listener, is the miracle of positive thinking. So if you're sitting in the dark, waiting for a sign, let this be it. You're not too broken. You're not too late. You're not too far gone. You are one thought away from everything changing. Months turned into a year. The stall became a shop. The shop became a bakery. And the bakery? It became a small sanctuary. He called it Asher's Rise. Not after himself, but after the idea, the belief, the movement. People didn't just come for bread. They came for warmth. For the kind words Asher tucked inside paper bags like secret notes. Little phrases he scribbled by hand and dropped in each customer's order. You are stronger than you think. Storms don't last forever. You matter. You always did. One day, a young woman stepped in. She was thin, worn down. Her eyes carried stories she hadn't told. She ordered just a bun, the cheapest item. When she opened the bag outside, she found the note. Your pain has a purpose. Please don't give up. She burst into tears. The next day, she returned. Not to buy, but to ask, voice shaking. Do you mean what you write? Asher smiled. I meant it the moment I lived it. She stared. How did you know I needed that? I didn't, he said. I just know someone always does. That day, she stayed. She helped serve, clean, organize. The day after, she came again. A week later, she brought a friend. Within months, the bakery became more than a business. It became a place where broken people stitched themselves whole. One man who was suicidal found purpose kneading dough. A woman fleeing abuse found courage sweeping the floor. A boy, abandoned by his father, learned to read using flour sacks with letters written on them. They called it the light room, the back corner of the bakery where they met after closing hours. No lights except for candles, no rules except one. Leave your shame at the door. They laughed, cried, prayed, read, dreamed. Asher didn't preach. He didn't lecture. He just listened. Because he had once been the man who needed someone to say, I see you. I believe in you. He said it now with his presence, with his eyes, with each warm roll passed across the counter. And somewhere along the way, without realizing it, he became a legend. Newspapers wrote about him, the man who heals with bread. He was invited to speak at events, but he always declined. He didn't care for applause. He only cared for stories. Stories like his. Stories like yours. Stories that say, I thought it was over. But it wasn't. One rainy evening, the boy from the park came back. Older now. Taller. With a crutch in hand and a notebook in the other. He stood in the doorway, smiling. You remember me? Asher's eyes softened. How could I forget the boy who saw dragons in clouds? They sat down. No words for a moment. Just silence between kindred souls. The boy, now a teen, opened his notebook. I've been writing, he said. Because of you. Asher blinked. Because of me. You showed me that a smile can save a life. I want to do the same with words. He handed Asher the first page. It read, The Miracle of Positive Thinking, a story you won't forget. Asher laughed, then cried, because he understood something now, that when you choose to believe in light, no matter how deep the darkness, you don't just save yourself, you light a path for others, one flicker at a time. The notebook the boy brought became the seed. Asher read each page, each poem, each memory. Every line held pieces of hope so fragile, yet so powerful, they made him believe the world was ready for more. Publish this, Asher told him. But the boy shook his head. I don't have the money. And who'd read it anyway? Asher smiled. We'll figure it out. One roll at a time. That week, Asher placed a glass donation jar on the bakery counter. No pressure. No explanation. Just a small sign that read, Help publish a book that might save a life. Customers noticed. Some dropped coins. Some dropped thousands. In 40 days, they had enough. The book was printed on matte pages with soft covers. Simple. Beautiful. Honest. It didn't sell in millions. Not at first. But one copy landed in the hands of a schoolteacher in Karachi, who gave it to her students, one of whom gave it to his cousin, who shared it on social media with the caption, This book found me when I was about to give up. It went viral. Within weeks, the story was everywhere. News anchors read passages on air. Bloggers called it a quiet revolution. Hospitals began gifting the book to patients in recovery. Shelters gave copies to abused survivors. Schools added it to reading lists. But most importantly, people started writing their own stories. They began leaving positive messages in coffee shops, under windshield wipers, on sticky notes in elevators. Small sentences that said, "You're still here. That means something. It's okay to not be okay, but don't stop here. This world needs your light." Somehow, quietly, a ripple became a wave. And at the center of it all, still behind the bakery counter, still dusted in flour, was Asher, the man who once believed he had nothing. He watched it all unfold. With awe, with humility, and with deep, quiet joy. Because he never set out to be famous. He just wanted to matter. One morning, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. It said, "Dear Asher, I was going to end my life. But I walked past your bakery that night. I heard laughter. I saw people hugging. I saw candles in the window and faces filled with light. I stood there for 20 minutes and then I changed my mind. I went home. I cried. I breathed. I lived another day. Thank you for unknowingly saving me." Asher folded the letter and placed it in a wooden box beneath the counter. It joined dozens of others just like it. He called it his box of light. Every time he doubted himself, he opened it. And remembered, one thought can change everything. Eventually, the bakery became a non-profit. They opened workshops to teach baking to underprivileged teens. They offered mental health support, free journals, free meals for anyone struggling. And on the wall above the doorway, painted in simple blue letters, was the phrase that started it all. The miracle of positive thinking. Years later, Asher sat on that same bench in the park where he once met the boy. Only now, he wasn't alone. Children played. Birds chirped. And beside him sat a group of young volunteers, people he had helped, now helping others. Someone asked him, "Did you ever think this would happen?" Asher smiled, eyes shining with memory. "I didn't even think I'd survive." He looked at the sky and this time, he saw the dragon. Because now, he believed. Years passed like falling leaves. The bakery thrived. The workshops expanded. People from all over the country and even abroad came to visit Asher's rise. They didn't just come for the bread anymore. They came for healing. They came to feel seen. They came because someone had told them, "If you're lost, go there." Asher grew older. His hair turned silver. His steps slowed. But his heart, unchanged. He still woke up before dawn. Still lit the candles in the light room. Still knelt to tie aprons for young volunteers who reminded him of his younger self, scared, unsure, but quietly powerful. He didn't fear death. He feared only one thing, that the light might fade when he was gone. So, he prepared. He trained a team not of experts, but of believers. People who had felt darkness and chosen hope anyway. People who understood that you don't need qualifications to heal. You need compassion. One day, he gathered them in the back room, the same one that had once been filled with tears, laughter, prayers, and silence. He looked at each face, some scarred, some smiling, all radiant, and said, "Don't let this place become just a bakery. Let it stay a home. Don't let these words become slogans. Let them remain lifelines. Don't let my name be remembered. Let the message live louder." They promised, and he believed them. That night, Asher returned to the park one more time. It was quiet. The moon was low. He sat alone. Until a familiar sound reached him, soft footsteps and the rhythmic tap of a crutch. He turned. It was him. The boy. Now a man. He was no longer the child chasing clouds. He was a writer, a speaker, a light bearer. He sat beside Asher, notebook in hand. "I've been wanting to ask," he said gently. "Why did you believe in me that day?" Asher smiled. His voice was thinner now, but steady, because you saw hope, even when you had every reason not to. And when someone sees hope like that, it's contagious. The young man opened his notebook. I've written your story. Every chapter. Every miracle. He turned to the last page. How does it end? Asher asked softly. The man looked up, eyes full of reverence. It doesn't, he whispered. Because you taught us all. That light keeps spreading long after the flame is gone. They sat in silence. Not goodbye. Just gratitude. A few months later, Asher passed away peacefully in his sleep. No pain. No fanfare. Just quiet. The world didn't stop. But something shifted. Because people remembered. The bakery overflowed with letters, candles, and stories from around the world. He saved me with a sentence. He gave me a reason to try again. He reminded me that even broken people can be builders of beauty. The boy, now the man, took Asher's box of light and turned it into a book. Then a foundation. Then a movement. They called it Project Light. Schools across the country began Hope Corners, small desks where students could write anonymous positive notes to one another. Hospitals painted the words, "Still here. Still strong," across waiting room walls. Prisoners read his story and wrote letters to those they had hurt, apologizing, healing, hoping. And on the anniversary of Asher's passing each year, people across towns, cities, and countries gathered. No speeches. Just candles. Just light. And in every place from rooftops to refugee camps, one phrase glowed brightest. The miracle of positive thinking. Because, in the end, Asher didn't just change his life. He changed thousands. He turned darkness into a doorway. He turned sorrow into soil. He planted kindness and left behind a forest of it. And if you, watching this, feel like your life is too small to make a difference, remember this. So was his. And yet, here we are. Years after Asher's passing, long after the bakery had become a symbol, long after Project Light had crossed borders and become global, one more story was waiting to be told. A story that had been buried in silence. It began with a woman, frail, gray-haired, sitting alone in a government shelter far from the city. Her name was Layla. She had no family, or so the caretakers believed. One day, a young nurse brought her a book to read. The Miracle of Positive Thinking. She read the first page slowly, then the second. Her hands trembled by the third. By the fifth, she was sobbing. She clutched the book to her chest and whispered just one word. Asher. He wasn't a stranger to her. He was her son. The one she'd abandoned decades ago when she was young, scared, and broken. She hadn't known what became of him. She assumed he'd perished in the system, another forgotten name. But now he wasn't just alive. He had become light itself. Guilt crushed her. She couldn't breathe for hours. She sat staring at the sky as if it could undo the past. But then she remembered the book. The notes. The message. It's never too late to heal. She wrote a letter. Not to ask for forgiveness, but to tell the truth. To confess. To grieve. To honor the boy she once left behind. She mailed it to the address on the back of the book, the Project Light Foundation. Weeks passed. Then one day, a young woman knocked on the door of her shelter room. She introduced herself. I'm Miriam. I run Project Light. I was one of the people Asher helped. He saved my life. Layla wept. I don't deserve to be near his name, she said. But Miriam gently took her hand. He would have said the same, once. But he taught us all, we don't have to be who we were. We can become something better. Later that month, Layla was brought to the bakery. It was the first time she had seen it. Smelled the flour. Heard the warmth in the walls. She touched the doorway, running her fingers over the words. The miracle of positive thinking. Inside, on a shelf by the window, sat Asher's box of light. She opened it. Among the letters, she found something she never expected. A note, written in Asher's own handwriting, never mailed, never sent. Addressed to the mother I never knew, but never hated. It read, "If you're reading this, it means you're still alive. And if you're still alive, there's still time. Time to feel. Time to forgive. I don't know your story, but I know mine. And I want you to know. I'm okay now. I found light. I became what I needed. And if I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing. Because every wound gave me wings. And every absence gave me space to grow into something beautiful. If you carry guilt, let it go. Just love someone new with all your heart. That will be enough." Asterisk. Layla collapsed in tears, but this time, not of regret. Of release. She stayed. She began volunteering in the bakery, slicing bread with trembling hands, offering quiet smiles to children who reminded her of him. And slowly, the shame faded. Not erased, but transformed. Into service. Into softness. Into grace. And so, Asher's story, a story that began in silence and suffering, became something eternal. It reached the forgotten. It touched the discarded. It healed even the one who had hurt him the most. Because the miracle of positive thinking isn't just in changing your life. It's in becoming the reason someone else changes theirs. A wide, golden sunrise spills over the city. The bakery is glowing. Inside, a child, maybe 10 years old, places a new letter in the box of light. She's smiling, eyes wide with purpose. Then she turns and asks the woman sweeping the floor, "Who was Asher?" Layla pauses. She smiles, the kind of smile that carries both sorrow and pride. He was a boy who thought his life didn't matter. But he was wrong. He mattered to the whole world. The camera pulls back, out through the window, across the street, above the rooftops, until the whole city glows like a constellation of hope. Because even long after the flame has gone, the light still burns.